For the fifth episode of A New Vision of Reality, I'm joined by Hayward Fox, the founder of the Institute of Personal and Transpersonal Knowledge and a psychotherapist for over 50 years, who has worked for many of those years to integrate TSK insights and methods into his psychotherapeutic practice.
No, I would say I was terribly bereft of any kind of inspiration. I always had an interest in psychology, but I was spiritually asleep. I decided when I was 9 years old that I would be a child psychologist. That's what I decided. Until I did some rotations with children, and then I decided I think I'd rather work with adults.
What do you think prompted that interest in child psychology so early for you?
Well, there was a television show with Barry Nelson, and it was called My Favorite Husband. And Barry Nelson was a child psychologist. And I remember sitting on the couch, and he was very wise. Those were the days where fathers on situation comedies were all buffoons. But this guy, he had his stuff together. And he was very wise. And I remember sitting there admiring him and thinking, here's the thought. That's what I want to be when I grow up. And I was referring to that quality of knowing. And then I added a child psychologist. As a child, how could I be an adult psychologist?
Right.
So that's how that started. And I always had an interest in psychology. My mother was always in psychotherapy, and I'm sure that primed me in some ways. And from time to time, if I was going to be writing a paper or something, I would generally choose psychological issues, and then I would get an interview with whoever her therapist was at the time. And I would get material for whatever I was going to write about or speak about psychology. So I think I was drenched in it, and could not have been other. There wasn't a spiritual dimension to it at all.
What do you think prompted then your interest in TSK? How did that emerge if you had, kind of no inclinations in the beginning for that?
I was supervising psychology interns and externs through the University of Arizona. And I had a spiritually inclined intern. And he suggested that I go to a retreat that was being led by Larry Simmons. Now, Larry, when Rinpoche wrote the first time-space knowledge book, he had a focus group. And my understanding was that Larry was in that focus group. And when Larry came back from working with Rinpoche around the first TSK book, he began to lead and facilitate programs. And so I went to the first one and received a free copy of Time, Space, and Knowledge. Larry had a whole box load full of it. He was handing them out like it was popcorn. And so I got the book. I had the weekend with him. And I looked at the book. And I haven't been a reader because I'm a very slow reader, very slow, almost like a word. I was at that time a word reader. And I began to read that book word for word. And it felt like I had gotten bitten. There was this quality of since it was hard for me to read, it was nothing else could be of greater benefit than to read this material. And so for a year, I didn't read anything else but the first volume of Time, Space, and Knowledge. And I found the book hard to read, but the secret for me in that book was I tried to read the copy, the narrative, and I couldn't understand it. And then I tried to do the exercises, and I didn't know what was going on. And then I read the commentary. And I thought the commentary was the key because in my mind, that was Rinpoche telling us what it was we were supposed to get.
Mm-hmm.
So then I went through the book just reading commentary. And after I would read commentary, then I'd go back and do the exercise. And then I'd go back and read the narrative.
Mm.
And that was the only way that was the way it revealed itself. And since 1980, on a daily basis, I'm either reading something in time, space, knowledge, one of the books, or I'm practicing every day. At the same time, I'm a full-time clinical psychologist with a very full therapy load.
Mm-hmm.
So I read time, space, knowledge, and then do practices, and then I go to the office. And in the beginning, it seemed as though I had a binocular view. I had the view of the person as I was trained as a clinical psychologist. And then creeping in there was this view from time, space, knowledge.
Mm.
And so every day I would continue to work, and over years, the two visions merged sufficiently that I think I am able to use it in clinical practice in a very, very growthful, unbinding, freeing kind of manner. So that's what happened, and it's still happening.